welcome to the conclusion of Baldur's Gate. Yes, we are at the end of the story. This is going to be the final choices. I've got one more video to do, which will be a review of Baldur's Gate, because I have some very interesting thoughts about it, but we'll leave that till there. I was left with just the conclusion and a few side quests, like find some more dribbles of the clown corpses. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do that in a second playthrough and then maybe Google the answers. And I had some bugged quests, like go and deal with Cazador. I was like, Cazador's dead. Basically, I had the ending to do. And full of surprises it was to get here after the tentacle-ridden, massacred bloodbath of I'd left in my wake getting there, despite the fact that most people consider me to be a wonderful person. I knew where to go because I'd found it during the Temple of Baal incident with all the rats. I knew where to go to begin the end game, and the Emperor was like, it's time, let's go and do it. And I was like, cool, this is awesome. So I headed down there, where I encountered the Mother Brain, and my god, the Absolute is juicy. She's a juicy, throbbing, big, pink, cuddly monster. It's like a deceptively evil Kirby looking at me, and I like what they did here. I assume it's for your first time playthrough, it's to just drain your inspiration charges, to be like, yeah, you're screwed. Because I really tried to beat these dice roll to bring the brain down. I do wonder if there's some gear set up, or if you're obviously aware of what's about to happen, that you can manipulate this in some way to win at this point in the game. You probably can. It's Baldur's Gate. But for me, it was like a 99 skill check, and I'm like, okay, if I get a critical 20, does that beat it? I don't know. I don't know the rules that deep, but either way, I lost. And the brain was about to take over as the Emperor rushes in to save me. He's like, get out of here, we gotta go. And then all hell is unleashed on Baldur's Gate as the brain arises and all the Nautiloid ships come flying in, and devastation and destruction, which was not my fault. To be clear, this is story. I didn't cause this. I'm innocent of this. All good. Then it came down to the choices. One that I didn't expect. The first one was that the Emperor tried to convince me to turn into a tentacle man. And my alternative choice, seemingly from my followers, which I assume is based on who you've romanced, but I could be YOLOing that, is Karlach offered to be turned into a sludge monster. I don't want either of those things. Like, that, again, in my point of view of my character, is like, I don't want to be turned into a tentacle monster. And I don't want Karlach to be turned into a tentacle monster either. That's not my goal. And I don't really like the Emperor anymore. He's kind of a jerk. He's a backseat Andy. He's always just in your ear, like, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. Like, shut up, man. I'll make my own choices, right? You know me. I'm stubborn, and I really hate people backseating me. So I was like, you know what? I've got my Hammer of Orpheus. I'm going to let Orpheus out. And the Emperor was very not happy with this. Very not happy. He's like, dude, don't do that. That guy's going to come out and kill you. He's like, well, maybe not. Maybe we can convince him, right? Maybe we can use our charisma and our charm to settle him down. The greater good, all that. He's like, no, man. If you release Orpheus, I am out of here. I'm like, well, let's give him a chance. Let's see what happens. And immediately, the Emperor, and this justified my position, I will say, dips and joins the other team. He instantly switches to the Absolute. He's like, right, fine, that's it. You're a jerk. I'm out of here. I'm joining. I was like, you little rat. This is why you were a rat. I knew you were a little rat. You didn't even try. You didn't even give it a try. You didn't even stick around for 2 seconds to see if this would work out or not. No, you just instantly flipped and switched teams. I was like, you absolute jerk off. So the Emperor left. I freed Orpheus, and this was probably one of the better conversations of the game. This guy hates you. He's got the, I'm going to get the name wrong. Ansor, the dragon. Same sort of point of view. Is like, you are Wormbrain. You have to die. And I watched you. While I was sealed here in the prison, I watched you murder my people. And I'm like, yeah, but they were killing me. It's like, they were supposed to kill you. That was a good thing. And you murdered my people who were just trying to stop the worm spread. It's very... I like that it's got this moral ambiguity about it. On the one hand, all the worms should die. Okay, I get that, but at the same time, I'm like the only person that can save you. So killing me off, just like indiscriminately killing anybody with a worm, is not going to win the fight. It's not going to win the war, I should say. You're going to win the battle, but you're not going to win the war. So I had a dialogue choice, which was like, let's just ignore that for now and focus on the enemy at hand. And he agreed. Super. Really cool. He's got the sort of wisdom you would expect from somebody in this position, despite what he's been through. He's like, no, you're right. we do have to fight this last battle. So I really liked this, and he agreed to become Tentacle Man. Thumbs up for me. My characters got to stay as they were. He turns into a Tentacle Man. Excellent work. And he is amazingly powerful. Like, this is so good. And he can, like, eat the brains of everything and just take people out. He can AoE stun everything. He can do this massive black hole business. Really liked Orpheus joining the team and being part of this character. It was then time to return to Baldur's Gate, which is not in good shape. And all the people I have saved came back to support me. I believe, in my point of view, there was quite a good turnout. Okay? There was quite a good turnout. There was 7 or 8 teams that showed up to support me. I am aware that possibly there should be a hell of a lot more, but I didn't think it was that bad. I really didn't think it was that bad. There was a pretty good team that showed up. Had a really nice fight moving into Baldur's Gate, which involved sort of like 30 or so enemies. This started to play out as I figured out how to use Orpheus properly. And what I found is that Karlach, because I could get this like elevated position, Karlach's telekinesis was just continuously just throwing people off the building. Perfect. My barb was just running around shredding things. I had Jaheira just like CCing things and just attacking things in general. And the best thing I got out of this was a tag team that formed, which was Shadowheart and Orpheus. That tag team was awesome. Shadowheart playing like pure support, shields, defenses, blinding things, doing all that, while Orpheus was just steadily just destroying everything and stunning everything for multiple turns. It worked out super, super well, and I thought this was one of the better fights. A huge battlefield, lots of elevation, different verticality to it, and it was awesome. As well as a bunch of allies that could come in and soak up some of the damage for me. Really worked out well with line of sight and things. I like this fight a lot. Moving into the next part, the way I interpreted what was going on is probably not the way it was supposed to go, because it's kind of a gauntlet mission. I got a little bit lucky here, but let me explain it. I saw a brain stem leading up to the mother brain, but it says you can't climb it. So I went off to the right-hand side, where there was several giant ledges with enemies on them, and I was like, oh. But I could see on the map, if we go the left side, there's like a big door, which may be easier. So I started moving, I went to the right, and then the gauntlet started with Nautilus ships like bombarding the area. So I went off to the left and moved my team around there. And it did take a long time as I moved around there, but it felt like the safer path. And then all the enemies kind of bunched up in that area. I got bottlenecked really badly here. And Jaheira got knocked off. I was in a really bad way moving up to here, but I did eventually clear that out to eventually arrive at the main stem. The problem was, by the time I got there, I was drained. I had nothing left, and there was nowhere to get a long rest. My saving grace here was the game, who kind of, I guess, takes a bit of pity on you in case you got here and are not prepared, because I really didn't know what I was supposed to do here, because I was like, I think we're going into the final fight. So either one of two things is going to happen. One, I have to fight it in the condition I'm in, which is going to be not only just bad, but boring, because I haven't got any access to any of my spells. Or it gives me a free refresh when we go into the final fight, which has happened before. Like, sometimes there's a restoration point or something like that, because they want to keep the intensity up, and they don't want you... I get why they do it. They don't want you to leave this epic encounter with a city burning and ships bombarding you to go and have a sleep in a camp and then come back later. But the cupboard next, or a little chest of drawers next to it, gave me a potion of long rest, which I had never used in the entire game. And so I was like, oh... And I searched, and at some point, without reading, I had picked up another 3 of these throughout the game, and I just had them sat in my potion bag. I was like, oh, I can literally refresh the entire team. Yay! Thumbs up. That worked out really well. So I got long rest on everybody, fully charged, didn't have to leave the arena. Perfect, absolutely wonderful. And now it was time to engage in the final fight. Okay. This final fight. I've got to preface this by saying, yes, I was disappointed in this fight, but let me explain why. The final fight takes place at, like, on top of the Mother Brain, and there's some conditions that need to be met. One is to try and get Orpheus to the back of the room to use the Infinity Stones on the stem for a full turn. He's surrounded by 4 Mind Flayers. The Emperor then joins the fight, brings a dragon with him, along with a bunch of other enemies. So there's a lot going on here. So I'm predicting, like, my general mindset here was, right, I'm going to send Shadowheart and Orpheus, the ultimate tag team. I'm going to send the Dudley Boys, as I was calling them, over to the Mind Flayers, and they're just going to eat the brains of the Mind Flayers and kill all those up at the Brainstem, and then he's going to be able to access the Brainstem. I'm going to have the rest of my team focused on the Emperor and the Dragon and everything else to get that cleaned up, and I'm going to have Karlach pulled really far back to shoot from an elevated position, but also stay out of the way from having her concentration broken, so that my Barb and Jaheira can be fully powered and engaged. That kind of was my strategy, and I killed the Emperor the first turn. Emperor turned out to be super wussy, and then I was dealing with the Dragon. Same as Answer, I had to bait the positions. Loved this. And Karlach, I was like, what should I do with Karlach here? Because the enemies were so spread out. Like, I didn't really want to ice the environment because my melee were down there. Fireball, pretty good. But what I could do is keep summoning in allies. And I was like, that makes more sense. I could just have these friendly NPCs just running around, attacking things. The AI is terrible. But my initial goal was to spawn allies near Karlach to protect her. Because I think the AI does pick up that, hey, that haste buff is really powerful. We should go and attack Karlach. Because a lot of the enemies just started swarming towards Karlach instead of dealing with my other characters that were closer to them. So I was like, right, I'll spawn allies on Karlach, essentially, to build a wall of NPCs around her. They got kind of mind-controlled in some cases, but effectively it did work out, and it was pretty good. And I summoned in Dame. I was so excited for this. Dame has been a character I couldn't wait to utilize in combat again, because she's got Moonbeam, she's really strong, really powerful. She has a ridiculously low chance of surviving spells, though. Or not surviving, but getting hit by spells. Dame turned out to be the first pain in my backside in this fight, because Dame continuously got mind controlled. Like, every single turn. I must have broke her out of mind control 6 or 7 times. And it just got annoying to the point where I was like, I kind of just want her to leave, because dealing with her is more annoying than anything else. Because I constantly have to just go and break this mind control so she's not just running around killing everything. So that started to frustrate me a little bit. But that wasn't the big disappointment. Once I dealt with the dragon, and there's so many allies in the field that they were just, like, starting to kill all the other NPCs that were there, is I sent my Barb and Jaheira up to finish off the far-reaching Mind Flayers as the team sort of converged at the Brainstem. By this point, the Nautiloids had started their attack, which was fine. You just have to move out of their AoE. It's not a big deal. And I activated the Brainstem. Okay. If only I knew now what I didn't know then. Or if only I knew then what I know now, I should say. So I accessed the Brainstem, which then takes you to another environment. So I got in there with Orpheus, and it's like a multi-tiered level to reach the actual core of the brain. I was like, oh, cool. And it's like a DPS check. It says turns until it kicks you out. I was like, oh, wow, we've got a DPS check. That's pretty cool. But I do need to get my team in there because they're still outside. So I went down with Orpheus, and he attacks, but it's like repelling damage, so it like hits you. It's like, okay, so we need to get Shadowheart in on the next turn, and blah, blah, blah. Here's the problem. I had spawned every ally by this point, because why not? This is the final fight, right? Why wouldn't I have done that? Which meant there were a lot of characters involved in this fight. And the way the game works is it has to show you the turns. But it also flicks back to the character that you previously played with. So what I got for the next couple of minutes was just a constant black screen. And it took me completely out of the fight because it just kept constantly switching. Like, something's happening out here. Let's go back to Orpheus. Blah, 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 blah. And I was just like, what is happening? Because I barely had a second to interact with the game at all, as it was just constantly black screen, loading different environments over and over again. And it really started to take me out of it. So I was like, this is just annoying at this point. Of just watching a black screen during the epic final fight of the game. I realized probably a couple of turns later, it's like, okay, if I have a window when it goes outside to click somebody who is outside to stop this happening, and that resolved that situation, but for a couple of turns, this was just really irritating. I got my other characters in there, I got my Barb down there, and got Jaheira down there, and took nearly 2/3, or just over a half of the HP of the brain off, and I still had a couple of turns left to finish it off, or 3 turns. I was like, okay, well, this is in the bag, this is no big deal. I did notice something. was that these white orbs had appeared in the room with the actual brain. And I couldn't see what they were doing. Now, I know what it is now, obviously, but at the time, I didn't really see what they were doing because they were floating above it. You can click them. They have a turn, but the description when you check them doesn't tell you what they're doing. So I was like, what are these things? Are they going to explode or something like that? But they're kind of far away from me, so it's not a big deal, I don't think. Are they bombs? I can't pick them up or do anything with them. I can't shoot them. So I wasn't really sure what they were all about. Part of this, I think, at this point is if I'd been less frustrated with the fight at this point, then I probably may have noticed what was going on. But either way, it led to a better ending. So the next turn, when they got a turn, they killed my barbarian. They killed Orpheus. Because what they're actually doing is destroying the floor under your feet. And there's a little, like, pinky glow around the areas they're getting. I was like, oh, okay. It took one turn for me to realize what the hell was going on. I was like, oh, I get it. Well, now we have a problem, because only Jaheira's left. It still has a lot of damage left to take. And Jaheira does great damage, but she's not going to finish this in 2 turns. So the play was to get Karlach there, who was still at the far back of the first, because I didn't need her up there. I was doing so much damage to the brain, I didn't need Karlach up there. So Karlach is as far away as humanly possible. So I'm looking at this situation. I'm like, what the hell am I going to do here? Because I don't want to wipe now. I've won the fight. I just need to do a little bit of damage to this thing. What am I going to do? And so I'm thinking. I was like, okay, this is what I can do here. I can haste Karlach. I can Misty Step. And I can run as fast as humanly possible up to this thing. And I can leave all the NPCs outside, the friendly ones, to deal with the never-ending spawn of ads. Because there's so many up that when an ad spawns, they're being killed anyway. And try and make this, like, clutch touchdown play. It's like the last minute of the last quarter or whatever. And I charged up. Karlach got in with 1 turn remaining. And Jaheira was out of position then, because one of the turns of the orbs that destroy the platforms wipes out all the space in melee. So I had to Misty Step Jaheira to the far back of the platform, so she was reduced to shooting arrows. And I got Karlach in, who sent 1 big volley, which did finish off the brain. GG's, final fight won. But that was a very... I guess it gave a better, more stressful conclusion than if I just had 1 more turn and just wiped the damn thing out. But we killed it. We're done. We're done and we're dusted. It was a great celebration, great victory. At this point, of course, I did a little bit of trolling. They were like, what are you going to do now? So I had to see what was going on. This was science. So I saved the game and selected, I will become the emperor of all. In my name, we shall reign supreme, because I am the only one who is mature and forthright enough in order to provide sanctity to the people. I played it straight on stream. And people were like, of course, this is what he's chosen. Of course, this is what he's chosen. I was like, okay, played that in the hour. I was like, okay, let's do the real ending. No, I'm not going to do that. That wasn't my plan. I was just teasing you. So we came back to do the proper ending where we defeat the Absolute and freedom reigns. Then it got a little interesting. There were definitely things I'd been annoyed by, like I couldn't solve. And the main one I brought many times was saving Karlach. That was really frustrating to me. So the ending is like some epilogue with the characters, what they're going to do now, where they're going to go, which is great. And then it got to Karlach dying. And I was genuinely kind of sad about it. Like, I haven't had a moment in Baldur's Gate 3 that was emotionally as impactful as Divinity. But this was one of them. This was close. But it'd been coming for so long, I'd already accepted this was probably a fate. But I got a choice that I'd actually suggested a long time ago as something I would offer to do, which was to go with Karlach to Avernus so we could be together. That would make total sense for my character, who has innocent blood on her hands unquestionably, but also doesn't really, in my opinion, my character doesn't fit into the world of the Sword Coast. It's just too violent. Just too violent and deadly. But in hell, with a girl who's down for it, that sounds good to me. That sounds great to me. And the option appears is like, we'll go together. And she was totally up for that. And I was like, oh, this is... I have to say, this is about the most perfect ending to this story, or the story of this playthrough, that I could have wished for. I was so happy that we got this, and I got this wonderful ending scene of me and Karlach in hell itself with swarms. It was like Stranger Things season 3 where all the creatures are coming. We didn't play guitar on top of a camper van, but we did smoke cigars. Very Terminator, very Arnold Schwarzenegger. We're cigars in hell, getting ready to kick ass and take some names and murder hell endlessly for the rest of our lives. So it's going to be a combination of sex and blood going forward to like a Tarantino movie. And I was like, that's perfect. Nice. Oh, we're going to fuck some shit up here. Soldier. You hasting me? Yeah!
It worked. My engines calmed down.
No, I told Will not to come.
I shouldn't have let you come here. This isn't going to be easy, you know. Zariel's going to come at us with everything she's got. Gods, like clockwork. They'll be on us soon. But there's just enough time. Thought I was done with these.
We're going full Arnie. Cigars in hell. Baller ending.
Then,
10 out of 10 ending.
Imps are fast, but careless. Don't let them tire you out. Just get rid of them. And don't forget.
Don't worry.
You asked for
this. This is the best possible ending I could have wished for. This is the dream.
And this time, I'm not alone.
Just cast haste on me, alright? I got this. Following this, though, apparently, and I know this now, this scene was added later after the release. So some of you might not be aware of this, just to be aware of it. There is another epilogue scene after that, where you get to return from Avernus. With Will's there. I ditched Will. Like, I'm sorry. I can't with Will. Like, he was like, I'll come to Avernus. And I'm like, nah. Nah. But he goes anyway. I really like the idea that me and Karlach are in hell, and so is Will, but we don't talk. We don't visit. We don't see him. And every now and again, he's like, hey guys, do you want to come over for dinner? I'm here too. And we're like, nah, it's all right, Will. It's good. We get to return, and they have a camp night where all the characters come back together and sort of let you know what they've been doing six months, a year later, or however it is. Which was really nice. Like, Shadowheart has obviously gone on some sort of, like, pilgrimage, which makes a lot of sense. Will's like, yeah, I've been fighting in hell. And I'm like, oh, that's good for you, Will. So have I. Karlach's just having the best time being back and understanding that we can visit on occasion to come back. But this is obviously setting up, at least from what I could tell, for some sort of DLC. Because Withers is like, yes, there's more. And then you get another epilogue scene after this of Withers sort of denouncing the Dread 3 and saying the gods have been watching. Did you really think that the other gods were not paying attention to what you've done? You can't just take all these souls and expect nobody else to be caring about what's going on. Which leads into potentially something there with Hell. There's some hints that maybe Avernus will be the next DLC. But the way Karlach talks is like, we're going to invade this particular place, and maybe we'll get an Avernus DLC. There've been some mixed responses on whether there'll be a DLC or not, but this feels like very much like, hey, if we do make a DLC, it's probably something to do with this, and Withers is setting that up nicely. As the credits rolled on the game. I can't express enough. For me, this was about the most perfect ending I could have asked for. The companions went their own way and did their own thing. The companions, besides Asterion, he's the only one I'm genuinely sad we lost along the way. Because I intended something different for Asterion, and he got lost, but he was not my favorite character at the time. The characters I really, truly enjoyed were Jaheira. Eventually, I wish I'd brought Jaheira into the party earlier, because she joined during Act 3 after Asterion died, and I needed somebody to replace them, and it wasn't going to be Will. So that was... Jaheira actually turned out to be awesome, and I would have her as soon as possible on, like, a best of the best playthrough. But Karlach and Shadowheart, They were great. Like, the people, the characters the game introduced me to that I really liked are the ones who went on to flourish and do really well. I got to have the ending that's felt perfect for the character that we had created during this playthrough. And overall, I couldn't really be happier with the ending that I got. There was nothing besides the actual final fight itself, which was, again, it was frustrating and disappointing to me just because of how it played out. I could make it better now by not dealing with these black screens for ages, etc., etc. It was just very frustrating at the time. The actual story and epilogue of the game, really enjoyed that. I thought this was tremendous and a real capstone to what has been a wonderful playthrough and a game that I know 160 hours in, which is what this playthrough was, I've barely scratched the surface of what this game has to offer. I'm aware of... I watched the speedrun, actually, after this, which was really interesting, because GDQ was just on in January, so and they had Baldur's Gate 3 there, so I watched the GDQ speedrun, where they did things I didn't know about, such as... apparently, if the moon lantern that you can get from the spider in Act 2 talks to you, and you can open it and have a fairy come out of it. I don't know what the result is because the speedrun sort of skips through it, but I saw that happen. I was like, what the hell is that? So that's something I want to check out. I'm aware you can apparently lift the curse in Act 2 on the lands. I'm really curious what happens if that happens. There are characters I do want to know more about that didn't fit into this playthrough, like Halsin. I do want to know about Halsin. Halsin seemed like a very interesting character and something to do with. Apparently, I can get a character called Minthara. I didn't get Minthara on my playthrough because Minthara immediately aggroed when I entered the room, so she died. Maybe I do non-lethal on her. Maybe there's a way of, like, sneaking in there. I don't know. But those are some of the bigger things. Act 2 is something I want to replay. Last Light got destroyed in mine, which vastly did a different outcome to what probably the normal sort of White Knight-y playthrough would get. Rescuing Isabel, seeing what plays with that, seeing what her relationship with Dame turns into. There's all those things I do want to know about, as well as Gale's story. Like in a playthrough where I'm like, okay, I will take Gale because I'm interested in his story. The same with Lizelle. I'm interested in your story rather than your character because I don't like what you did in my playthrough, but obviously in second playthroughs you want to experience those stories. Those are things I want to find out about. Same with Minsk. Like, does Minsk have a bigger story? I don't know. Which just means I probably, 160 hours in, I've probably done like 15-20% of this game. But that's my ending. I'm going to do one more video, which is like a more extensive thoughts on the game. But it doesn't fit right in here in this TDP. So I want to thank anybody who's come along for this journey. It was amazing. We are going into a phase now where we're going to do some... we've done 2 massive projects on stream recently. We did Elden Ring. I know that's not been put in the TDPs, but because it was during the subathon. But we did Elden Ring, which was another 130, 140 hours. Then we did Baldur's Gate 3 immediately after. So we've put nearly probably 300 hours, realistically, into 2 games over the last 2 months. So I'm going to take this time between Season of Discovery for World of Warcraft to enjoy some one-day games. So you'll see a couple of those on the TDP and some thoughts on those. And then we're going to get into some bigger projects again. All right, so thank you all. You've been wonderful. And a big shout out to Bex, who this is her first real TDP project, who's been putting these together for us. And I'll see you in a little review. Bye, guys.
Thy faces, gods, thy actions barely worthy of the name. Didst truly believe thy ploy would succeed? Didst believe I would not notice? Thou soughtst to bolster thy strength by taking away the souls of mortals. But souls vanish when their hosts become mind flayers. Didst think the other gods would not notice? Gods thou may be, yet thou hast proven thyself fools. Everyone. The supplication of Bane, the whimper of Baal, the death mule of Merkel. Felled by mortals, I overestimated thee. They did not. Vermin, away. Thou wilt trouble us no more.
Man, he talked some mad shit to that wall.